I never imagined I would risk everything for the twin girls of the woman who shattered my world. I still feel the weight of her betrayal pressing against my chest. It all began with one fateful conversation. I can hear her voice now, dripping with false sweetness, laced with hidden secrets. "You'll be fine," she said, as if she could ever define what "fine" meant for me. In that moment, I was sitting on my bed, the walls closing in like a cage. My hands trembled, my heart raced. I could still smell the vanilla and jasmine perfume she wore. It lingered in the air, taunting me. My entire world felt like it was unraveling, threads pulled tight until they snapped. My breath hitched as I recalled how she spun tales that seemed harmless but hid monstrous truths, the twins. I hadn't even met them yet, just two innocent girls trapped in the tangled web of their mother's making. They were only 6, with wild curls and innocent giggles that echoed in my mind. How could they be linked to the one who tore my life apart? I'd seen them through the cracked window of her home, bright-eyed and carefree, blissfully unaware of the chaos swirling around them. I couldn't help but feel a surge of protectiveness, an urge to fight for those little souls, but the stakes had never been higher. I couldn't shake the feeling that secrets lay buried beneath their laughter. Could I really step up and become their guardian? My own heart felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Yet the thought of letting them down terrified me even more. The news broke like a wildfire, a raging storm sweeping through our lives. An accident. And just like that, I was faced with the unthinkable. How could I claim to care for them when their mother had destroyed everything I held dear? My best friend, my soulmate, ripped away because of her lies. The broken pieces of my heart mirrored the shambles of my life. Every step towards making a decision ignited a storm in my gut. Inside, I was screaming. A rush of fear clawed at me. Could I really walk into that house? Each creak of the floorboards resonated like cannon fire as memories crashed down upon me. I noticed the silence, the thick air filled with unspoken words. They hovered like ghosts, refusing to let me go, but I couldn't ignore the twins. I wanted so desperately to offer them a shard of hope amidst their mother's shadow. My heart raced furiously as I wondered if I had the strength to face her, to face the truth buried deep beneath layers of resentment and pain. And then, like a thunderclap, the realization hit me: could I truly take them in? Could I rescue them from the darkness their mother cultivated? The uncertainty loomed over me. Would I become their savior or sink further into despair? My hands trembled as I imagined their innocent faces staring back at me, helpless. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. A leap of faith was all that remained. But what if the fall shattered me even more? What if I wasn't enough? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and deep blue, I understood one thing vividly. Every moment felt like I was straddling two worlds, one where I could save those girls, and another where despair ruled. I took a deep breath. The air tasted heavy, full of unshed tears. Just then, a sound jolted me from my thoughts, a faint giggle, followed by the unmistakable sound of tiny feet pattering on the floor. My heart raced. The twins. They were so close, yet a chasm of uncertainty separated us. What if I reached out, and all I found was darkness? But I couldn't turn back. Not now. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air felt electric as the giggles danced through the silence, teasing out the remnants of my tangled emotions. A part of me wanted to embrace the sound, to let it wash over me like a soothing balm. But the other part, the cautious, battered part, ached with dread. How could I step into their lives, into their joy, knowing the storm of heartbreak swirling in my own? it was a fragmented existence, this limbo where I waited, alone with my thoughts. As shadows lengthened across the room, I found myself standing there, paralyzed by the thought of those delicate lives inside that house, unaware of the turmoil unfolding around them. Each breath felt heavy with the agony of doubt. I had always thought of myself as strong, but now I felt fragile and broken, a vessel pouring all of its essential contents into an abyss of uncertainty. Wiping a tear from my cheek, I pushed off the wall, willing my legs to carry me toward the laughter. I approached the door to her home, hesitant yet strangely drawn to the innocent joy that intertwined with my storm. What awaited me on the other side? Was it betrayal wrapped in laughter, or the chance to rebuild? I paused, my hand hovering above the doorknob. I heard their voices closer now, crystal clear like a melody that could awaken something deep inside me. "Do it again, do it again." One of them squealed. A moment later, the other joined in, their laughter ringing through the air like wind chimes in a summer breeze. It stirred an unfamiliar yearning within me, a desire to protect, to nurture. Despite the shadow of their mother hanging over us all, with a shaky breath, I turned the knob and stepped into the warmth of an illuminated room. The scene that unfolded before me was both beautiful and painful. The twins tumbled over each other, their vibrant laughter bubbling up as they played with colorful dolls scattered across the floor. Their joy illuminated the darkness, sending small sparks of hope through my heart. But as I stood there, an unwelcome weight nearly buckled my knees. "Who's there?" The voice that pierced through their giggles was as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. It sent a shiver racing down my spine, a chill that contradicted the warmth of the room. I turned slowly to face her, her gaze met mine, those sparkling eyes that had once held so much promise now dimmed with the weight of deception. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone laced with both surprise and a hint of accusation. "2 came to see the girls," I stammered, feeling the tension coil between us, heavy enough to suffocate. "2 want to help," her lips curled into a mirthless smile. "Help? After everything I've put you through? That's rich." It cut deeper than I expected. I felt the old wounds stirring, and new ones forming under her caustic words. It would be easy to step back, to turn away from this twisted family, but a flicker of determination ignited within. The twins' laughter was a beacon pulling me forward, spilling over the edge of my hate with its innocent light. Before I could respond, one of the girls spotted me. "Auntie!" she shouted, her face transforming into a radiant beam of joy. The other twin turned, her expression mirroring that of her sister. Suddenly, I was enveloped in the innocent delight that only children could inspire. My name echoed in my ears, and with it, the fraught tension of existence faded slightly as the twins rushed toward me. They clung to my knees, their softness grounding me in ways I had never anticipated. For a brief moment, I was no longer a prisoner of my grief. Instead, I was a lifeline to these girls, their simple trust rekindling a flicker of hope inside. But just as quickly, the warm embrace of the moment shuddered. "You have no idea of the responsibility you're taking on," their mother warned, stepping closer, her voice a tightrope filled with danger. "It's not as easy as it seems." Beneath her threats lay a darker truth that swirled with each breath we shared in the room. My heart raced with a sense of foreboding. In her gaze, I could see the layers of her resentment intertwining with a desperate need to cling to control. The looming threat of losing the girls by simply attempting to love them formed inside me a new layer of conflict, one that stung sharper than I had expected. As I prepared to navigate the minefield of her wrath, the innocent giggles echoed ominously in my mind. I needed to be their shield, their guiding light. But the shadows were gathering again, and suddenly, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I glanced down, the light illuminating my face in stark contrast to the dreary atmosphere. It was a message from an unknown number. Words flickered across the screen, "I know the truth. Meet me at the park bench tomorrow at 3. Don't tell her." My heart thudded violently in my chest. What truth? Who sent this? Without a second thought, I turned my gaze back to the twins, the fight for their innocence now tangled with a revelation that could shatter everything. If I chose to follow this lead, what would happen next? Would I put them in danger just by pursuing the truth of their lives? The weight of my decision pressed down as I felt the grief-cold shadows meld with the anticipation of something far more dangerous, and so, as darkness enveloped the room once more, I stood at the precipice of a new challenge, caught between the innocence of the twins and the treacherous secrets their world concealed. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating, as I struggled to process the message flickering on my phone. The twins clung to my legs, their innocent joy acting as a tether to the moment, but a storm brewed on the horizon of my mind, threatening to unravel everything. Part of me wanted to shield them from the impending darkness that loomed, but the urgency of the message pulled me in a different direction. Who knew what kind of danger lurked behind the shadows? Are you okay, Auntie? One of the twins looked up at me, concern shadowing her bright eyes, a reflection of the empathy they seemed too young to possess. I knelt down, forcing a smile, as my heart ached for their innocence. Yes, sweetie, of course, I managed to reply, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. I need to talk to your mom for a moment. Her brow furrowed with confusion, but the other twin chirped, can we play with you after? The eagerness in their voices, full of life and anticipation, sent a twinge of guilt racing through me. Of course, I promised, holding on to that sweet moment, knowing it might very well be the last time we played in pure joy. With a glance at their mother, I stood, a resolve stealing within me. I had to uncover the truth not just for them, but for myself. As I approached her, the air thickened with unresolved tension. We need to talk, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She crossed her arms, her posture defensive. What more is there to discuss? You're not a part of this anymore. Each word she spat felt like a dagger, and yet, a small voice deep within whispered, but I want to be. The conflict churned, a maelstrom of love and resentment intertwining in my chest. Maybe I'm not, but those girls deserve a chance at happiness, and you. I hesitated, not wanting to unleash what was truly unraveling. You seem lost, too. Her facade cracked briefly, and for an instant, I glimpsed a weary soul behind the armor. But it was snuffed out quickly. You don't know anything, she retorted, her voice sharp enough to cut. Actually, I think I do, I said, summoning a courage I wasn't entirely sure I possessed. If we don't work together to support them, they're going to bear the brunt of our brokenness. We need to protect them. In that moment, a fleeting vulnerability spilled into her features, a weakness that seemed foreign, yet familiar. You don't understand my circumstances, she muttered, her voice lowering, as though the walls would hear her betrayal. I'm doing this for them. But at what cost? I pressed, the heaviness of our shared histories swirling around us. Your pain doesn't cancel out their needs. You're not the only one who loves them. Love doesn't mean anything here, she shot back, her eyes narrowing. I'm trying to shield them from deeper scars. With each exchange, I could feel the air pulse heavy with unshed tears, unresolved tales of hurt lingering just below the surface. Maybe we both need to shield them from our fears, I said quietly. Her defenses lowered ever so slightly, and for a heartbeat, I thought we might reach a truce, but suddenly, one of the twins left her toys and approached us, her tiny voice filled with a mix of innocence and concern. Mommy, are you fighting? Every fiber in my being twisted at the sound of that question, twisting further when their mother turned to face her. No, sweetheart, we're just talking, she replied, but the tremor in her voice betrayed the lie. The girls seemed unconvinced, but the moment was broken when I heard the shrill ring of my phone slicing through the stillness. It was another message, the screen lighting up with raw, undeniable urgency. Tomorrow at 3. Don't be late. The finality of the words settled over me like a shroud. I felt a pulse of anxiety race down my spine. Apart from the danger threaded within the message, I realized that this meeting could hold the key to unlocking truths I had only dared to glimpse before. Did I have to go? I said, the words feeling like a betrayal in their own right. There's something I need to do. What? She demanded, a flicker of anger sparking in her gaze. But I couldn't explain. The shadows hiding behind my decisions were too convoluted, too tangled. I couldn't afford to let her in, not when it might place the twins at risk. In that moment, with the twins watching, wide-eyed and confused, I felt the weight of their future resting heavily on my shoulders. I turned away, pushing through the door and feeling like a coward, but deep down I knew it wasn't cowardice. It was survival. As I stepped outside, the cool air hit my face, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing in my heart. I could feel the twilight casting long shadows around me, swirling with uncertainty and decisions yet to unfold. My thoughts spiraled. What awaited me at the park bench was uncertain, the danger palpable, but perhaps along this treacherous path, I would finally grasp the truth that could save us all. As I walked away, a new kind of dread formed at the pit of my stomach, one that could unearth wounds far more profound than I had ever imagined, and the echoes of laughter from the house faded behind me, but in my mind, they grew louder, intertwining with the promise of new challenges ahead. I needed to unravel the truth, whatever risks I had to take to keep them safe. But as I took each step forward, the destination before me loomed ominously, filled with the shadows of secrets I had yet to confront. The park was almost empty, drenched in the fading light of dusk. I found myself standing where countless memories had taken shape, the grassy knoll where the twins once chased the sunlight like it was a tangible thing. I could almost hear their giggles peal through the trees, dancing on the wind, but then that fragile sound morphed into an unsettling echo of loss. My heart pounded as I approached the bench, the meeting place that the message had commanded, one filled with promises of clarity but steeped in uncertainty. As I sat down, I instinctively scanned the park, half expecting to see shadows creeping up behind me. Did I think they could haunt me even here? My heart raced not just with fear but with longing. Longing for the past, for the innocence shared over simple afternoons of laughter, the famed battles against fierce dragons defeated by imaginative minds. And yet, those beautiful memories now felt tainted by a current of dread. Moments passed, ticking away with the time that weighed heavily on my shoulders. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling. Each time I glanced at it, the screen remained annoyingly still, a silent companion to my growing anxiety. I shifted, unable to calm the restlessness curling in my gut. What was I supposed to expect, then? As if the universe sensed my turmoil, a figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette that had haunted my dreams since the day everything shattered. My heart lunged against my ribcage. It was him, the very person I had hoped to avoid. The man who I believed had played a crucial role in the unraveling of our lives. The corner of his mouth curled into a half-smile that felt more like a threat than reassurance. "I see you got my message." His tone was casual, as though our history hadn't borne the scars of betrayal. "Why are you here?" The words spilled out sharp and raw, underscored by anger and vulnerability that danced perilously close to the edge of my resolve. He stepped closer, the fading light casting long shadows. "I didn't want to do this over text. It's more personal," he said, his gaze searching mine. Behind his confident facade lay an unsettling unease, a flicker of regret that battled against whatever facade he wore. "Personal?" I sneered, unable to contain the bitterness spilling forth. "Is that what you call ripping apart lives? Hurting the ones who deserved better?" His expression darkened, and for a moment, the tension filled the air thicker than the dusk closing in around us. "I get it. You still don't understand. That's why I'm here." "Understanding? You expect me to sit here and listen to your excuses? You chose to destroy everything. I won't tolerate it. Not anymore." My voice quivered with pent-up frustrations that snarled freely now, like a thousand wounded thoughts desperate for release. That he softened, and the familiar ache of affection I had buried deep inside began to claw its way back, no matter how hard I fought to keep it dormant. "It wasn't supposed to go this way. Spare me," I interjected suddenly, the anguish spilling over into my heart as memories flooded back, the love, the laughter, and the moment everything had changed. My throat tightened. "You can't just show up and expect me to believe you've had some sort of epiphany." A deep breath filled his lungs, and for the first time, I saw a hint of despair in his eyes. "There's something you need to know, something important about the twins, about their mother, about me." That last word hung in the air, heavy with implications. A pause stretched between us, thick with all that had gone unsaid over the years. It was breathing room filled with unshared secrets and tangled emotions, a dangerous place to linger. I don't want to hear it, I said defiantly, but part of me itched with curiosity. I was a moth drawn unwittingly to his flame, willing to risk singeing my wings once more. They're in danger, he finally murmured, the gravity of his words striking me like a whip crack. An icy sensation washed over me. And it's not just their mother it's connected to me. You were right all along, they can't be shielded forever. I need your help to protect them. In that instant, fleeting memories of warmth and shared dreams collided with the sting of betrayal, and my world tipped. Trust wavered like a fragile house of cards, and every instinct screamed for caution. You want my help? After everything? I know what I did, he pleaded, desperation leaking through the cracks of his once impenetrable bravado. But their safety isn't a game anymore, it's much more real. That I held his gaze, the battle raging within me, a tempest of hatred for the man who had betrayed me, coupled with an undeniable bond formed through shared pain, the twins in peril looming ever larger in my thoughts. Could I abandon them to face whatever storms were brewing? They were innocent in this tangled mess that bound us, and they needed a voice. Before I could answer, the sky rumbled ominously and a chill descended as if forewarning of new trials ahead. Something dark loomed closer, and I felt it in my bones. Yet, beneath the weight of my fear and the throbbing ache of unresolved emotions, there flickered a sliver of hope. Then it came, the unmistakable sound that severed the tension between us, a distant siren weaving through the stillness, an unwelcome herald of urgency. Stay away from them, I warned through gritted teeth, straining against the pull of the chaos. If you care, you'll respect that. With his eyes reflecting a mixture of defeat and determination, he nodded slowly, and within that gesture lay a promise unturned, a bond stretched thin but potent enough to hold us together. But as I rose and turned to leave, the weight of our shared past hung over me like a dark cloud. The cliffs of uncertainty loomed ahead, and I wasn't sure how to navigate them when his voice broke through the silence again, heavy with a finality that shattered my resolve. Tomorrow, after your meeting, you'll know everything. I froze, caught off guard. I had chosen to step into the unknown, but the path ahead now felt even more treacherous. With a shaky breath, I walked away feeling the enormity of what lay ahead, shadows whispering in my ears, hopes forged in peril, and truths waiting to surface that could snap the world I knew apart once again. The night air clung to my skin, a reminder of the chilling uncertainty that had been thrust into my life like an unwelcome guest. As I walked away from the park, the echoes of our conversation clung to me, a heavy haze of mistrust and flickering hope. I could feel the weight of a darkness unfurling somewhere in the shadows, its tendrils reaching toward me, promising more turmoil, more confrontation. That I didn't look back, though a part of me wished to catch one last glimpse of the man who had tugged at the very fabric of my existence. I was relieved, yet profoundly unsettled. A trembling fear hugged my heart, his warning about the twins and the storm brewing in the distance. The reminder of their innocence stirred a protective instinct within me, prompting me to act, even as the storm clouds of our shared history churned ominously above. Arriving home, I was greeted by silence that felt like a character in itself, filled with memories of laughter and joy that now felt like ghosts. I stood in the hallway, where small-footed prints had marked the floor with shifts of delight, but now everything felt muted by loss. I wanted to curl up in the embrace of the girls' laughter, but I was acutely aware that their essence still felt warm, yet dangerously close to flickering out amidst brewing chaos. The clock ticked on as if mocking me, counting down to the moment I would have to confront the reality ahead. The world beyond my walls felt scary, yet, I knew I couldn't shield them forever. My thoughts spiraled back to the man in the park, his desperate plea breaking through his practiced facade, and I yearned to understand, what everything could he bear to share that would change the course of our lives. That night, sleep evaded me, twisting my mind like a restless river. Each sound outside echoed like a warning. Thoughts collided, chaotic lithe twins, his fragile confessions, the promise of danger. I closed my eyes, but behind my eyelids, nightmares twisted and turned, offering moments of clarity only to shatter them moments later. Morning light broke reluctantly through the curtains. I stood by the window, wrapped in uncertainty, staring at the colors of dawn that draped the world in hopeful warmth. The twins were safe for now, they were still dreaming, yet, somewhere within, I felt a turning tide. If the man with the fractured past had spoken truly, if the threat was real, I had to confront it head-on. The meeting for the day felt suspended in time, a lingering event heavy with the weight of what could happen. I prepared myself, surrounding my heart with fragments of resolve while the impending doom whispered tauntingly in my ear. In a flurry, I drove towards the office, my mind racing with thoughts of the twins. Would I be able to protect them? Was it even my place to step in? The world had grown unbearably larger since I'd learned of their existence, and I carried the shifting sands of longing and fear with me. Each ticking moment felt maddening, every stoplight serving as a reminder of my own hesitation. As I skimmed through my notes, the words danced before my eyes, yet everything beyond them was empty, overshadowed by anxiety that clawed at my insides. I was ready to burst, to scream, every paper dishing out another wave of confusion until it became evident that I couldn't wait. The office bustled when I arrived, a stark contrast to my racing heart. I forced myself into the flow, lost in a sea of spreadsheets and mind-numbing discussions. Just as I began to convince myself to regain my footing, the sudden shrill of my phone chimed through the silence like a thunderclap. Heart pounding, I half ran to the corner office where I could find some privacy, expecting the worst. When I opened the screen to see the name on the caller ID, I felt my stomach drop. It was him. A lump formed in my throat. I hesitated but answered, fighting inner turmoil. What now? The edges of my emotions pressed against in a fervent need for clarity, but before he could speak a single word, a voice broke through to me via the line. You need to come right now. It was one of the twins' teachers, urgency wrapping her words like a noose around my heart. What's wrong? My voice gathered a tremor that couldn't hide the fear contained within. There's been a situation with their mother. Administration is worried she's showing concerning behavior, and the girls, they seem distressed, she said, her worry palpable even through the phone. A wave of dread washed over me, stealing away my breath. What do you mean? Are they okay? I could hear the tremor of her voice in response, slicing through my resolve. I think it might be best if you come here. The teacher's voice turned hesitant, heavy with implications that settled like lead in my heart. I'll be right there, I promised, adrenaline injecting purpose into my veins as I rushed out the back door, leaving my work behind like the kind of washed-out dreams I had grown all too familiar with. As I sped to the school, time unraveled as every second stretched into an eternity, visions of the twins' faces flickering through my mind filled with a bright innocence that seemed perilously vulnerable against the world. When I arrived, the school buzzed with a frantic energy, teachers whispering, students gathered, casting anxious looks towards the principal's office. I stepped in, desperate to make sense of the chaos unfolding around me. In the corner, I spotted them, tiny bodies that once sparkled with laughter, sitting still, their heads bowed low as if they were bearing the very weight of the world. Hope slipped through my fingers, replaced by an overwhelming sensation of dread. That I moved toward them, my heart racing, but before I reached the twins, the principal stepped into my path with an intensity that left me breathless. You were mentioned as an emergency contact. It's urgent. A flicker of new fear ignited within me. What's happening? But before he could answer, my mind suddenly flashed back to the man in the park standing in the shadows, whispering of danger. The tension flooded my body. What if the very threat he spoke of had come to find us today? As I turned back, the twins looked up at me through a veil of uncertainty and fear, their wide eyes questioning everything, silently asking if I could shield them from yet another storm. My heart shattered, tethered between their innocence and the shadows of a complicated past, and as I crouched before them, I couldn't shake a new, chilling worry that we were all on the brink of something much larger, an unfolding mystery intertwined with family ties, betrayal, and an unrelenting duty to protect. I was stepping into turmoil that might leave everything I knew shattered all over again. The principal's voice was just a hum in the background as I crouched before the twins, their small hands intertwined as if trying to anchor each other amidst the chaos. Their once vibrant smiles had faded, replaced by furrowed brows and frightened whimpers. How could I protect them from whatever storm loomed on the horizon? They deserved safety, the kind that would wrap them in warmth without the piercing chill of uncertainty that had wrapped itself around my own heart. That I glanced back to the principal as he muttered fragmented sentences about protocols and concerns, but none of that reached me. All I could focus on was the glimmering hope in the depths of the twins' wide eyes as they searched for reassurance. I had to find the words to comfort them, but my own heart was a tangled web of fear and protectiveness. "Hey, my sweet girls," I began, striving to infuse my voice with warmth despite the cold dread steadily creeping in. "It's going to be okay. I'm right here." They inched closer, as if my presence could dissipate the dark clouds swirling in the room. "Are we in trouble, miss?" Olivia, the elder twin, whispered, her voice trembling like a leaf in a storm. I shook my head vigorously, fighting against the rising panic. "No, no, not at all. You are both the bravest girls I know." I reached out, wrapping my fingers around theirs, aiming to fortify the fragile bond we shared. "There's nothing to worry about as long as we have each other," the principal cleared his throat, pulling my attention back to the serious matter at hand. "Your ability to calm them is commendable, but we do need to address their mother's situation." He lowered his voice, his gaze flickering to the twins before settling on me. "She hasn't been seen in the past few days, and we are worried she might be in a state that could endanger the girls." My breath hitched with each syllable spilling from his lips. The words hung in the air, dense and raw, a wound I feared would never fully heal. I thought of the man from the park, his warnings now looming larger in my mind. The pieces were beginning to fit together into a picture painted in shadows and anxiety. "What do you mean?" I managed. Is she hurt? Could she be the reason for the darkness that was slowly inching closer to the twins?" The principal hesitated, swallowing back the truth. "We don't know. The administration has decided to initiate child welfare protocols. They've contacted authorities, but until there is a clear understanding of the situation I felt my heart sink. The twins needed stability now more than ever. They weren't mere decorations in this crisis, they were the reason I stood grounded amidst it all." "What do you need from me?" My voice was low, firm, steeling myself for the response that could shatter everything. "That we may ask you to temporarily take custody while we assess the situation," he said, eyes steady, searching my face for any flicker of doubt. The weight of those words pressed heavy on my shoulders. Could I truly be the pillar for them? What if I failed? But there was no question, if it came down to it, I would walk through fire for them. "Of course," I replied, the answer spilling from my lips with an urgency I didn't know existed within me. "If it's for their safety, I'll do it." The twins had shifted, their little bodies pressing closer as they tucked themselves against the wall somewhat defensively. An instinct kicked in. I needed to dispel their fears, offering them a semblance of normalcy in the storm. "Why don't we go for a little adventure?" I suggested, trying to inject a dash of excitement into the dreary air. "I heard they have ice cream at the corner shop down the street. What do you think?" Olivia raised her head slightly, curiosity glinting in her eyes. "Can we get sprinkles?" she asked, her voice still small but tinged with something that resembled hope. "Absolutely," I declared, feeling lightness in my chest at her small sparkle of interest. "Well, get all the sprinkles you want and maybe, just maybe, some whipped cream on top." A tentative smile crept onto her face, and I felt a flicker of relief. Yet, just then, the door swung open with a jarring crash. A figure stood silhouetted against the bright hallway light, and I recognized the man, one whose warning had cast a pall over everything I had known. "Miss, you need to listen to me." The urgency in his voice, wrought with desperation, sent my heart spiraling into turmoil. The twins flinched, clinging to my arms as if I could shield them from this unwelcome intrusion. "What are you doing here?" I shot back, tension flooding my voice. "This isn't over." He stepped forward, his gaze darting between me and the twins, exuding a raw urgency. "You're in terrible danger. You and the girls. We need to talk. It's not just about their mother." An icy grip of fear wrapped around my chest again, the reality of his words weighing heavily. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, now acutely aware of how fragile the evening could become. His mouth opened to spill more, but before he could continue, a commotion erupted at the school entrance behind him. Several authorities marched in, their expressions reflecting concern and determination. The principal straightened at their arrival, a nervous edge cutting across his features as they made their way toward us. For an agonizing moment, I felt the weight of the world pressing down as I stood suspended between the watchful eyes of the twins and the looming shadows of truth spiraling dangerously close. With apprehension carving deeper lines into my heart, I realized that all promises of safety, fragile yet filled with hope, were straining at their seams. Could I protect the twins in the face of unpredictable and chaotic circumstances? What darkness was lurking just beyond the door, waiting for its opportunity to break through? As their little fingers tightened around mine, a new storm brewed, a tempest of uncertainty, and the fragile safety I had fought to maintain felt ready to shatter once and for all. The air was thick with tension as the authorities filed in, their presence casting a long shadow that swallowed the spark of hope I had ignited moments before. I glanced down at the twins, their eyes wide with confusion and fear, and I could feel my resolve hardening. They needed me now more than ever, and instinct drove me to shield them, to cloak them in whatever armor I could provide against this encroaching dread. Miss. One of the officers called out, a woman with a no-nonsense demeanor and a clipboard clutched tightly to her chest. "We need to speak with you about the welfare of the twins." That I opened my mouth to respond, but the man from the park blocked my view, urgency wrapping around us like an unsettling fog. "Listen to me," he insisted again, his voice a desperate rasp. "You have to trust me. This is bigger than you think." Against my better judgment, I felt a pang of sympathy for him. His eyes held a depth of pain I recognized all too well. "Please," I said, turning slightly away from the impending investigation, "not now." The girls. He took a cautious step forward, attempting to lean into whatever invisible bond we were building under duress. "If you truly want to protect them, you will hear me out." "Time is running out, miss, please," the officer interrupted, her tone sharp enough to crack the air. "We must prioritize the safety of the children right now." Blind panic threatened to spill over. I held my breath, struggling to process the chaos surrounding us, the reality of the officer's words merging with the man's warnings like storm clouds coalescing in the sky. "What do we do?" I whispered to the twins, crouching lower to catch their eyes. "We need to stay strong together, okay? Remember what we said about bravery." An unspoken understanding flickered between us, a mixture of shared fear and resilience. Olivia and Emma tightened their grip, the twins drawing solace from each other and my presence. I had lit their flickering flames of hope, but now was not the time for suffering, it was a time for action. "Miss, your best option is to come with us to ensure the twins are taken care of," the officer continued, offering a reassuring yet authoritative glance in my direction. "We need you to confirm their immediate safety." As the layers of dread peeled back, realization struck like thunder. What if this was to be the end of our tiny family, forged amidst adversity? The thought made my heart race. Did I truly have the strength to endure this next upheaval? To lose the twins' trust, to break the fragile bond we'd solidified? In that instant, I could feel the man's presence press down upon me, his urgency unraveling the threads of my resolve. "Wait," I said, the words spilling forth in desperation. "What do you mean by immediate safety? What are you suggesting?" The officer's brow creased, as if considering how to communicate the weight of their duty. "We have concerns about their mother's well-being, Mississippi. We need to ensure they're in a safe environment. There's a possibility she may not be returning soon, and we can't delay any longer." My heart trembled at the implications. Whatever shadow had loomed over her was now casting itself upon the girls I had fought so fiercely to protect. The thought of their mother, somewhere presumably lost and troubled, twisted my heart in knots. I looked at Olivia and Emma, whose eyes were now shimmered with a mixture of confusion and sadness at the prospect of separation. "Can they stay with me?" I blurted, desperation creeping into my voice. "I'll take care of them. I promise." The officer hesitated, her expression softening just a fraction. "It's not that simple. We need to ensure that you're a safe environment for them too." "I am safe," I exclaimed, a surging tide of emotion breaking through. "Please, you have to believe me. This is where they belong." Before the officer could respond, the man from the park interjected. "They need to hear the truth. You need to know what's really at stake." His eyes flicked back and forth between us, searching for a thread of understanding. Your mother is involved in something dangerous, he continued. Urgency etched into every line of his face. The twins might be targeted because of it. Stop! I shouted, fury igniting within me. You don't get to pin this on her. If you have something to say, say it. Silence unfurled around us, the gravity of his words settling like dust in the air. She's connected to a dangerous group, he pressed, voice nearly cracking. I'm not saying she's the villain, but the deeper the involvement, the harder it is to pull away. You can't protect them if you don't know the truth. The world tilted as all the air left my lungs. I caught the twins' wide eyes darting between the figure of the man and the somber Officer, a whirlwind of confusion while realization clawed at my insides. Their small faces reflected a blend of innocence and an undercurrent of dread that had no place in their bright lives. That we can't stay here. Olivia cried suddenly, her voice breaking through the tumult. I want to go. The surge of emotion was palpable, a shared call for safety that resonated within me just as fiercely. It's okay, I murmured, cupping her face in my hands. We'll figure this out. I promised. As I held her gaze, the room felt electric with tension, the confrontation between love and fear gripping us all. The man's truth crackled like a live wire, and the walls around me felt as if they were closing in. A single decision lay ahead, a choice that could irrevocably change everything. But just as I was about to speak, the principal stepped forward, placing a hand on the officer's shoulder, and spoke in grave, measured tones. We will need all hands on deck if we are to protect them. They must remain with us until we figure out the next step. That single decision ignited a spark of defiance within me. The safety I wanted to carve for the twins felt like brittle glass behind a wall of uncertainty. The two worlds converging upon us were set to collide, and as I faced the uncertainty of the future, I felt myself torn between a promise of stability and the dissonance of the siblings' fate. With a final, haunting look back at the man, I wondered what truths lay ahead, buried beneath layers of darkness that could turn our lives upside down. And as the weight of my own heart remained suspended, clinging to the delicate flame we had forged, I feared the darkness had only just begun to unfurl its grasp around us. Each heartbeat felt like a drum in my ears as my hand instinctively grasped Olivia's tightly, pulling her closer as the officer prepared to lead us away. I felt the weight of the man's words hanging over me, a storm of uncertainty about the past and what lay ahead. Please, I pleaded again, half-hearted hope flickering like a candle caught in a windstorm. They need me. They are scared. The officer met my gaze, her expression softening with an understanding I sensed most neglected. We know this is hard, but we have protocols to follow. The twins' welfare comes first, it's what we must prioritize. At that moment, the girls began to whimper softly, their tiny voices lost amidst the distant murmurs of the gathered crowd. My heart ached at the sight of them, so small and fragile against the looming shadows of the adults making decisions that could seal their fates. An unexpected warmth brushed against my arm. I turned to find a woman kneeling beside me, an unfamiliar face of compassion. Her hair was streaked with gray, and concern carved deep lines around her eyes. Let me help, she whispered, her voice barely above the chaos surrounding us. I have resources. Let me see what I can do. Who are you? I asked, surprised by this unexpected ally in a sea of uncertainty. Just someone who wishes to help, she replied, determination igniting in her eyes. Sometimes, you find allies where you least expect them. The confrontation with the officer was still palpable as I pieced together a foundation for the next steps. The woman's words wrapped around me like a fragile thread. Hope was coming from the most unlikely of sources. Yet, I still felt an overwhelming dread bubbling, threatening to break through the surface. Look, can we at least talk while we wait? I urged, grasping the moment with desperate fingers. I need information. The officer hesitated but finally nodded, perhaps seeing the raw anxiety etched on my face. You'll have to keep it brief. We don't have a lot of time. As the rattling uncertainty embedded itself in my heart, my thoughts flickered back to the man from the park. His warning echoed in my mind like a haunting melody, summoning memories of a life once familiar, now reduced to echoes of laughter and shadows of unease. knowing their mother was involved in something dangerous left a toxic residue that clung to the walls of my mind. How could I protect them when the very person who should be is wrapped in darkness? But maybe the truth would give us clarity, the keys to rescuing us from unseen forces. I could fight the past for them, they deserved a fighter, not just a caretaker. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the air, and every head snapped towards the source. It was Emma, her twin sister, wailing in horror, her cries rising and falling like the tides of a storm as Olivia clung to her. "I want my mom," she sobbed, the innocence of her plea crashing against the hard reality we faced. That I knelt down, my heart breaking as I gathered them both into my arms, clutching them tightly against me. "I know," I whispered, trying to weave my voice with a soothing light, "I know you miss her, but we're going to figure this out. We're going to be safe. I promise you, we have to be brave together." But as the words left my mouth, a chilling doubt settled deep within. How could I promise safety when every step felt like a leap into the unknown? The officer cleared her throat, regaining our attention as the children slowly quieted, their tears still shimmering on their cheeks like little diamonds. "We need to move," she stated firmly, but her eyes softened as they looked upon the girls. "Come on, we will have a place for you to wait." With that, she turned to lead us away, and a sudden jolt of fear seized me. What lay beyond those walls? What were we stepping into? I clenched the girls' hands tighter, my heart racing with the fight to shield them from whatever awaited us. As we walked, the weight of decisions swirled around us like scattered leaves in the wind. My mind raced, torn between fear and the flicker of hope that had started to grow in unexpected corners. Perhaps in the chaos of uncertainty, a hidden strength could bloom. Just as we reached the door, there was a commotion outside, a growing murmur that suddenly exploded into a panic. I turned, my stomach dropping when I spotted a group of men slipping through the crowd, faces obscured by the hoods of their jackets, eyes scanning for something or someone. An ominous presence unlike anything I had encountered before filled the air, and my breath caught in my throat. "Run!" I shouted, instinctively pushing the twins behind me, a newfound fury awakening inside. "We have to get out of here," the officer shouted something, but it drowned in the chaos that erupted around us. Time seemed to unravel as I faced the encroaching figures, my heart a drum echoing through my chest, steady and relentless, an unspoken promise that I would protect the girls at all costs. With one last glance back at the hovering darkness, I realized we might be teetering on the edge of something unimaginable, and whatever lay ahead could reshape our lives endlessly. And in that moment, the very fabric of my conviction tore, revealing a truth that sparked another flicker in the depths of the tangled web surrounding us. The stakes were higher than I ever imagined, and I was wholly unprepared for the depths of this fight or the imminent confrontation lurking just out of sight. The moment hung heavy in the air, and instinct kicked in as I shoved the twins behind me, my heart pounding like a war drum against my ribs. "We need to move, now!" I roared, urgency wrapping its fingers tightly around my words. I had to be their shield, their warrior, even if the very ground beneath us felt like it was crumbling. The officer, capable and sturdy, sprang into action. "Follow me!" she yelled, her authoritative voice cutting through the din. She glanced at the approaching figures, a storm flickering in her gaze. I caught a glimpse of the girls' fear etched in every angle of their tiny faces, and it fueled a primal fire deep in my core. With a sense of purpose, we plunged through a door that led to the dimly lit interior of a nearby building, the sound of chaos muffled behind us. The air tasted stale, an odd juxtaposition against the chaos we had just escaped. I felt Olivia's hand slip into mine, her grip just as fierce as my determination. "Where are we?" Emma asked, her voice frail but laced with curiosity. Even in the worst moments, I admired the innocence she clung to, a small light in the dark abyss we now inhabited. "Just a safe place for now," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I promise you're safe here." But the weight of my promise hung heavily in the air. Every second brought us closer to the unknown, and I feared the darkness still lay in wait. Just as the door slammed shut behind us, I felt my heart sink further. A woman with kind eyes greeted us, the woman who had whispered her offer of help moments ago. Her gaze flickered to the officer, then back to me, an unspoken understanding passing between us. "You'll take care of them," she said softly, her hands trembling slightly as they reached out to the twins. "I have things here that might help ease their fears." With hesitance, I released my hold, allowing the twins to step forward. For a brief moment, quiet filled the chaos as they looked to the woman with cautious curiosity. This was the first chance at some semblance of stability, an oasis amid a storm, and the glimmer of hope beckoned to me in gentle waves, but as the woman knelt to console Emma and Olivia, a new layer of tension swept over me. I couldn't shake the sensation that time was slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. The men we'd seen were out there somewhere, their predatory presence looming over us, and they may very well know where we had gone. "Stay close," I said as I paced near the door, adrenaline lacing my words. "We can't linger here long." The woman looked up at me, her brows knitted in concern. "They won't come here not if they know what's at stake," she assured me, but her voice trembled slightly, a crack in her confidence. Even in this fleeting sense of safety, shadows danced behind my eyes, memories flooding back the moments I had shared with the twins' mother before the world fell apart. I had been so enamored by her spirit, her dreams, and how effortlessly she seemed to weave magic into the mundane. The irony of it all struck me like a bitter truth. I now stood in her refuge, fighting to protect what was left of her legacy while her decisions hung heavy like chains binding us to the past. "Can I trust you?" I questioned the woman, my voice hoarse with vulnerability. "We don't know who they are, and they might be looking for the girls." "My name is Clara," she replied, her eyes steady and sincere. "I've seen horrors in this world that would chill a lesser heart. I wouldn't let anyone hurt them, not while I can help it." There was a fierceness in her words, a quiet flame igniting in the depths of her soul, urging me to believe, to hold on just a little longer. Before I could reply, the officer stepped back into our small sanctuary, her presence radiating urgency. "We have to make a move soon," she said, her eyes darting nervously to the door. "If they're looking for you, there's a strong possibility they may trace your movements here." Everything inside me froze, a chilling reality dawning like a stormy sky. What if their mother knows they're here? I asked, a niggling fear clawing at my insides. I longed for answers, but this couldn't be the crossroad I was caught at. I had to find her and pull her back from whatever awaited in the shadows. Then perhaps letting her know is our only option, the officer offered, her gaze softening. "I can arrange for someone to meet her and we might be able to help you all. If she'll even want help," I interjected, anger flaring in my throat, poisonous and bitter. "She's the reason we're in this mess. She brought darkness into their lives." The moment the words left my lips, I could feel the weight of disdain settling on my shoulders, heavy like regret. But Clara stepped forward, her hand steady on my arm. "Every moment we spend battling against the darkness can find its way to the light. She's still their mother, she deserves a chance to prove she can change." A new wave of hope fluttered in my heart as Clara's words washed over me, illuminating the world beyond our confines. Perhaps that chance could extend beyond the scope of darkness currently clouding our lives. If she could reclaim a piece of what remained, couldn't we all find a path back towards light? But even as I clung to that shimmer of hope, doubt flickered like a candle in the wind. Would she truly want to help after everything? Just as I held that thought, sudden noise cut through the silence, a crash from outside, followed by frantic shouts. Panic surged as I exchanged frantic glances with the officer and Clara. We could feel the heaviness of that unknown storm rolling back in impending chaos, echoing just beyond our walls. My breath hitched, and for a brief moment, I stood at a precipice, pondering whether I could once again become the protector for not just the twins but someone I barely knew. It was at that moment a chilling fear festered within. What if the shadows came for us tonight? What if the past was a predatory beast, waiting to rise again and claim its due? The walls of our sanctuary seemed to tremble, and I knew then we might not have the luxury of waiting for someone to rescue us. In the depths of this brewing tempest, my resolve reignited. We would forge ahead, needling through uncertainty, if only for the sake of the twins and perhaps, to reclaim a piece of hope left behind. But with that flicker of strength came the realization that the shadows were closing in, and once more, a truth lurked beneath. Nothing could prepare us for what was to come, and the world we were stepping into was a wild, unforgiving place. Then, just as I was grappling with my fears, the door burst open, revealing the men from before. darkness spilling into our sanctuary like a flood, and in that breathless moment, my mind raced with questions. Had they found us? And more terrifyingly, what were they truly after? Inquiries skimming the surface of a cliff with no answer, propelling us into the maelstrom of an uncertain fate. An overwhelming surge of panic gripped me as the door swung wide, allowing shadows to creep into the fragile safety we had fought so desperately to maintain. I knew, in that instant, there would be no turning back. This was a crossroads laid bare before us, where courage would either carve a path or swallow us whole. The officer sprang into action, pulling me and the twins close to her. "Stay back!" she yelled, her voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. Clara closely followed, positioning herself protectively in front of the twins, a fierce guardian unwilling to let fear dictate our fate. But I knew we were unprepared, exposed to the danger that had unraveled our lives. The figures before us stepped further into the room, their intentions cloaked in shadow and malice. There were two of them, their eyes glinting like knives, intent on our fear. "Looking for someone?" The taller one sneered, his voice a low growl dripping with contempt. Rage ignited deep inside me, igniting every protective instinct I possessed. "Get away from us!" I shouted, pushing forward as if I could single-handedly drive them back with mere words. "We're not here to hurt anyone," the other man replied with an unsettling calm, leaning casually against the doorframe as if he owned the space. "We want what belongs to us, and we know it's here." He gestured toward the twins, who shrank further behind Clara, their faces pale with terror. My heart raced, my protective instincts screaming a desperate resolve that had fused within the very core of my being. "They're just children," I implored, my voice trembling. "Don't involve them in whatever twisted game this is." The men exchanged glances that told stories I dared not decipher but could nonetheless sense the malice wrapping around them like a shroud. "You don't understand the stakes," the tall one said, stepping closer with an unsettling confidence, closing the distance between us, provoking the primal urge to flee. I stood firm, anchored by the trust one had built with the twins, feeling the weight of their small presence behind me. "That we have to go," the officer urged, her tone shifting from assertive to cautious, calculation threading through her voice. "We can't compromise our position any longer." "But where?" My voice cracked, uncertainty creeping in. "What do we do? Are we just supposed to let them take us?" Doubt slithered through me like the shadows creeping upon our sanctuary. The twins clutched onto Clara, their small fingers shaking, desperately seeking comfort as uncertainty soared to insurmountable heights. The men laughed darkly at my rising panic, a sound that filled the air with a chilling resonance. I had to think fast. My thoughts coalesced into a singular, pulsating need to protect them, even if it cost me everything. With every fiber of my being, I vowed I wouldn't allow fear to crush us. "Enough!" I shouted, an assertive desperation in my voice sizzling through the air. "If you want to fight, you'll have to go through me first." It was a reckless, foolish move, but that primal instinct flooded my veins like fire. I felt the heaviness of my past ground me as though it had been preparing me for this very moment, the culmination of every heartbreak and every tear. Surprisingly, the men stopped, their expressions faltering, uncertainty flashing across their faces. "We don't have time for this," the shorter one hissed, agitation brewing in his tone. "Well, take her too, she knows more than she's letting on." Clara shifted, her steely gaze faltering only slightly. "You won't take anyone," she retorted fiercely, her voice like iron. "You have no authority here. Leave while you can." The tension in the air thickened, electricity crackling as the remnants of courage hung like a fragile thread. "Well, see about that," the tall one spat, eyes narrowing as he took a step closer. But just as they advanced, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, crawling toward us like bees buzzing with purpose. In an instant, the room shifted. A potent realization struck in rhythm with my racing heart. "They're coming for you!" I shouted over the din, every cell in my body igniting with urgency. "You better run." What happened next occurred in a blur. The men, realizing their impending capture, hesitated, weighing their options like cornered animals. But doubt seeped into their resolve, and the moment stretched infinitely, each second snapping tension like an elastic band reaching its breaking point. "Now!" I urged, pulling the twins into my arms, the dangerous intent of those men igniting a fierce protector within me. Together, we bolted toward the back door, Clara following close behind as the officer ushered us onward, her steady guidance unwavering in the chaos. As we burst through the door and into the alleyway behind the building, the cool air slapped like icy water across my face, awakening every nerve. It was invigorating, yet we had little time. "This way!" the officer shouted, leading us toward the dimly lit side streets, the thud of footsteps echoing ominously behind us. My heart thundered, a primal rhythm urging us forward, and as we sprinted through the alleyways, fear slithered beside us, urging me to look back, to ensure safety lingered just out of reach. Yet, glancing behind, all I saw was darkness and fleeting shadows, taunting us, inching ever closer, "Keep running." I urged the girls, their little feet pounding against the gravel, the sound and anthem of our determination amidst uncertainty. We'll cross the street and reach the park. We'll find safety there. Fear wrapped around us like a heavy cloak, but within that terror burned a flickering hope. I might still protect them after all, I would find a way to keep us safe from the encroaching shadows hunting us silently. The park loomed ahead, a sanctuary amidst chaos, filled with reminders of laughter, the echoes of our shared moments swirling in my mind, keeping me grounded. But as we veered toward it, footsteps grew louder, urgency creeping ever close behind. Whatever danger loomed, we had to outrun it. Finally, as we broke free, I spotted a figure in the distance, one that sent an unexpected warmth flooding through my heart. It was the man from the park, his fierce determination etched in his features as we collided, breathlessly, "Get them to safety!" he shouted, the urgency sparkling in his eyes as he moved to block the path behind us, unwavering against the threat. "I'll hold them off, no," I pleaded, my voice raw. "You can't," but he steeled his resolve. "Trust me. You're all that matters. Go." His eyes locked onto mine, a fierce conviction lodging into the depths of my soul. Understanding quelled my protests. Often the past had haunted us, yet within this dark tether emerged a thread of redemption. Yet could I truly trust him after everything? But as I turned to flee with the twins, I felt my heart pull taut, desperate to protect the fragile bond we forged amidst a collapsing world. "Stay close," I urged as we raced into the sprawling park, weaving through the branches and shadows, desperately grasping for safety. We dashed through the foliage, but my heart thundered in my chest, each beat sounding the urgent state we were in the webs of danger threatening to ensnare us once more. The trees became our shield, branches stretching towards the horizon, and just as we reached the edge of the park, the sirens flared loudly alongside the mounting chaos behind us. I dared not look back. Instead, within the flutter of uncertainty, I leaned into an instinct that had pushed me forward, a guiding light through the shadows cast by betrayal and fear. "Look, over there." Clara suddenly pointed, leading us toward a small cluster of cars parked loosely under the trees. The distant sound of chaos echoed behind us. We had to reach the shelter of those vehicles, to remind ourselves that life still flickered in breaths of uncertainty. As we approached the cars, a surge of adrenaline propelled us into motion. The world was alive around me, the wind whipping through the trees, each rustling leaf a reminder of resilience. But my thoughts spiraled to the man holding the darkness behind, ready to battle for our safety. He was the very embodiment of courage. "I can't leave him," I shouted suddenly, dread clutching at my rationality. "He's fighting for us. We can't just focus," Clara urged, yanking my arm gently to redirect my gaze to the vehicles. "We must care for the twins first." Her voice wrapped around me, grounding the chaos swirling and pressing dangerously close. Glancing at Olivia and Emma, I saw their wide eyes filled with questions and innocence, now at the precipice of understanding pain so vast it was undeniable. They needed me more than ever. "Okay, let's get inside," I commanded, the urgency pulsing through each word. "We'll be safe together. I won't let anything happen to you." I ushered them toward the nearest car, wrenching the door open as Clara slid in beside them to keep them secure. "Lock the doors. Stay low," I instructed, adrenaline propelling me into action. As they settled, I quickly moved around to the driver's side, seizing control of the vehicle, and placing the key into the ignition, my heart racing. Then I felt the presence of darkness lingering beyond the trees, threatening to encroach into our sanctuary once more, inching closer as fear clawed at my insides. "Please," I whispered as the engine sputtered to life, uncertainty flooding my mind. Princesses didn't just end with darkness, they answered past grievances with resilience. And in that spirit, I pressed harder against the gas, feeling the vibrations of potentially escaping whatever nightmare had just intruded upon our lives. But as I turned to the entrance of the park, a new voice broke through the air, slicing through the growing tension, primal and instinctive. Sirens drew ever closer, harmonizing their sound with the thundering of my heart. And with that mounting noise came a fierce wave of determination, would not let the shadows claim us ever again. Right then, as I raced down the narrow path, it felt as if fresh air had expanded into my lungs. Despite knowing uncertainties lay ahead, the burdens twinned with pain seemed to lift just slightly. The twins' laughter floated before me, igniting a flicker of hope against the darkness. I had to fight for it with everything I had, and, amidst this unfolding storm, I felt it, the crushing weight of our story unraveling but also new beginnings hanging in the balance. The collision of fear, regret, hope, and love had spun a tapestry far richer than I had dared to dream before. This moment symbolized not just surviving but thriving against adversity. With each turn of the wheel, I envisioned a future soaked in laughter, a certainty that carried the threads of connection through our lives. There was no denying the journey we would face ahead, the truth that lay veiled beneath shadows, but we would face it together. Together, we would weave a tale founded on resilience, where the bonds of love could rise above the fragments of our past. And as the wheels turned, the finality of despair slowly melted away, revealing a path illuminated with unyielding hope. One last time, I glanced at the sisters' faces reflected in the rearview mirror, twin stars shining bright, illuminating the darkness, proclaiming our right to forge new beginnings. "We're together," I breathed, barely a whisper. "And nothing can shatter that." In that moment, I began to understand a profound truth: family isn't defined by blood alone, it is formed through shared moments and unwavering resilience. And with every mile that stretched out before us, I vowed I would fight for their laughter, now and forever, that we would not only escape the dark, we would finally reclaim the light.